A few months ago, I showcased Juice's Umbral Blades Falconer, a build so powerful he rolled 10,000 corruption like he owned the place. A build that didn't bother fighting bosses. He straight up humiliated them. Pure style, pure steel, pure disrespect. But right when the entire community finally caught on, ESG started dropping patch notes like precision strikes. Little changes here, behavior changes there, capping skill interactions on top, and piece by piece, the Falconer we all love started fading away. So here's the big question. Did the build die, or did it evolve? Well, let me show you something and you tell me. The patch storm from the devs didn't just slap the Falconer, it dismantled what made her shine piece by piece. Umbral Blades lost its unlimited scaling, dive bomb's utility and damage got chopped down, then aerial assault's cooldown and recovery nerfed into the ground, and even the Falcon tree, the backbone of the class, had its damage and ailment transfer values reduced across the board. But the worst part? These changes weren't just number tweaks. They rewired core mechanics that changed how the build actually behaved. Dive bomb no longer scaled the way it used to. The Falcon stopped striking as fast. Razor 4 got reworked, cutting the number of Umbral Blades you could have spinning around at once. Now I won't lie to you, I was frustrated and quite salty about how my baby got guttered, but all hope was not lost. You see, with the release of Season 3 came primordial uniques, and one in particular has come to turn the tides. Season 3 brought one of the biggest gifts this build has ever received, Velocyn's Jaw. This dagger is everything the old main hand wasn't. Real dexterity scaling, real penetration, real speed. Now why does this matter, you might ask? Because our previous dagger was kinda just there. It didn't push our damage forward by much, besides the crit multipliers. But Velocyn changes that completely. You get dexterity scaling, you get penetration against all resistances, you get permanent haste, and you get a massive injection of crit multi on top. With that one swap, the whole build's identity shifts along. You see, the old version relied on Falcon damage and short, explosive dive bomb windows. This new version though, it pivots into raw multipliers. I'm talking guaranteed scaling, guaranteed speed, guaranteed uptime. All of a sudden, this build was no longer about timing one perfect dive bomb after another. It's about flowing with a constant stream of damage that never lets up. The Reforged Falconer doesn't hope to spike your damage. What it guarantees is pressure. It has turned into a dexterity scaling, crit multiplying, high frequency blade storm that never stops hunting until everything on site is dead and gone. And now that we reshape the core engine, let's talk about the supporting gear that makes this new monster truly complete. Most of the original gear is still here. However, some surgical upgrades were absolutely necessary to support the new Velocyn setup. And now more than ever, your affix slams matter. Dexterity is still king for this build, not just for raw damage, but for pumping out as many Umbral Blades as possible from aerial assault. Now yeah, Razor 4, which is responsible for this effect, got nerfed. It now only gives one Umbral Blade per 20 dexterity instead of 2. But don't get it twisted, my friend. That effect is still vital for this build. Only the difference is, we rebuilt the entire engine around Umbral Blades, and dexterity scaling hits even harder than before. So the new rule is simple, slam dexterity everywhere you can. We've also swapped out Blood Roost in favor of Liraka's Claws. This is because the ailment chance percentages transfer from the player to the Falcon got gutted. So instead of building around bleed or ailment damage, we can now focus entirely on raw throwing damage and multipliers, which Liraka's claws absolutely cooks with. We are still using the Jungle Queen in our belt slot, as it still provides exceptional stat boost for us and our Falcon. However, if you push in high tiers of corruption and getting your cheeks clapped, more than usual, feel free to swap to the Brewmaster's belt for more survivability. Just remember to slam a T7 cooldown recovery on it, so your rotation stays tight after the cooldown nerfs. For the chest, we move to Core of the Mountain for dexterity and insane survivability. Null Potent is still a very solid choice if you got a cracked one lying around. Just make sure you can stack dexterity on it and you're golden, my boy. Alright, gear is locked in. Now let me show you how we rebuild the skill trees to actually support this new dexterity stacking identity. The patch notes made something painfully clear. If you want consistency in real damage, you can't rely on random procs or buggy interactions anymore. The old version leaned on bleed and cold scaling, using Umbral Blades mostly as a debuff tool, while the Falcon handled the shredding. But after the nerfs, that playstyle is dead. So now we shift the focus completely towards Umbral Blade count and blade uptime. That's why our new core Umbral Blades nodes are cacophony of steel to spin our blades, steel torrent to spin longer and wider, and loading to add homing abilities to our blades. These are nodes we didn't even touch before, but now they are forming the backbone of the build. And remember all that dexterity we're stacking? Well, Umbral Blade scales beautifully with dexterity. This means we can flood the entire battlefield with blades that hit 100% crit chance, scale with massive crit multipliers, seek enemies like homing missiles, and don't stop spinning until everything is skull and bones. Now the remaining skill trees were mostly left untouched, but you might be wondering, why am I still speccing into bleed nodes when I literally just said we're not investing into bleed anymore? That's because the exsanguinating strike node in the dive bomb tree remain untouched even post nerfs. So any bleed source we can grab here is just free damage, and it's too good to pass up. Speaking of dive bomb, listen man, post nerf, Midnight Aviary was hit pretty hard, and since that node used to fuel our burst with uncapped multipliers, it was time to let it go. Instead, we pick a Flock of Crows for free dust shroud generation, giving us dodge, glancing blow, and most importantly, another boost to our Umbral Blades damage. Pair all these tweaks with the new gear setup, and you end up with way more consistency, way more survivability, smooth corruption climbing, and a style factor that is still unmatched thanks to a literal blizzard of homing blades. No matter the corruption level, this build still deletes maps, melts bosses, and still feels like a cheat code, but is now smarter about how he does it. So let's talk about how to actually play this thing with all the new changes. The old build had a lot of burst damage for sure. We used synchronized strike to create as many shadows as possible, and then guided dive bomb to repeatedly hit all those shadows for insane damage. It worked, but it also requires precise timing, because look, against a moving target, dive bomb straight up just goes to waste if the target moves outside the strike zone. Now though, the build never slows down. With our current setup, we zoom in at almost 150% movement speed, and mapping is as fluid as ever. Here's the general loop. Pop your smoke bombs to quickly move around the map while covering yourself in defensive layers and boosting your damage. Activate Falconry to proc bleed and Falconer's mark, letting you deal more damage to anything your Falcon sneezed at. Drop aerial assault on mob packs to proc Umbral Blades, and shred everything on sight into oblivion. Use dive bomb in between aerial assault activations to drop a few nukes while you traverse the map. Now that's the optimal way of playing this build, but due to how much sheer damage our Umbral Blades are ditching, you can literally just map the lazy way by simply spamming aerial assault and letting your Umbral Blades go to work. They chase targets, they crit, they spiral, and they don't stop until the screen is clean. Bossing is smoother too. All you have to do is stick to the same flow. Smoke bomb for defense, aerial assault for blades, dive bomb for burst, and swap synchronized strike for decoy to distract bosses while you melt them. The rhythm is addictive. You dictate the pace. You control the battlefield. You are the moment. So yeah, patch 1.3 tried to kill the Falconer for good, but all it really did was knock her down from the sky long enough for us to rebuild her into something even better. The result? A build that is faster, tougher, and way more refined than the monster that once ruled 10,000 corruption. She's no longer a fragile gimmick spamming dive bombs anymore. She's a high dexterity, crit scaling precision weapon, always moving, always striking, always 3 steps ahead of the corruption. If you want a build that feels like you're driving the action while unleashing absolute mayhem in the process, this is it. If this build update helped you, drop a like, subscribe if you want more cinematic breakdowns like this, and tell me in the comments what build you would like me to cover next. Until then, stay stylish, stay untouchable, and may your crits always be juicy.